Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. This November will be one of the warmest on record for many communities in the Northwest Territories, and the warm weather will likely continue through the winter across the north. The balmy temperatures are partly due to a natural weather pattern known as El Nino. Taylor Holmes has more.
The impacts of the abnormally warm November are widespread. Animals like foxes, bison, and caribou struggle to break through the ice, covering the ground and their food. It's also harder for trappers and hunters to travel on what are normally frozen lakes and rivers.
Well, this is probably the warmest November that I can remember. It's been really warm, and we got a little bit of snow, but it's wet, and then the last couple of days have been getting rain with it, so we're getting some icing conditions out there that aren't going to be good for animals. When you get that freezing rain, it gets a layer of ice on the vegetation, and it makes it harder for the animals to reach their food.
Environment and Climate Change Canada says that this year, many Northwest Territories communities will be in the top 10 warmest Novembers on record. The warm weather is expected to continue through winter due to El Nino, a natural phenomenon where the Pacific Ocean near the equator is warmer than average. Anticipate warmer and drier than usual temperatures for the first part of the winter and more fickle weather for the later half of the season, as this year's El Nino isn't as predictable as previous ones.
This El Nino can change everything. This is the really unknown situation from scientific part and for the prediction part that can cause a really challenge time for us because we are not able to predict. We feel we will face with a novel weather pattern and challenges during of the second part of it.
Temperature swings, ice storms, and extreme weather are expected for the later half of winter. As we head into spring and summer, the warm weather caused by El Nino could contribute to flooding or droughts for different regions and may contribute to another intense wildfire season. It's advised that people prepare emergency supplies ahead of extreme winter weather, and that those who plan to head out onto the land closely monitor weather forecasts and heed warnings from Environment Canada. Bonakdari also says that municipalities should start looking into fire and flood defenses ahead of the spring. Taylor Holmes, CBC News, Yellowknife.
A Yukon delegation has returned from Washington, D.C., where they traveled to discuss the state of Yukon River Chinook salmon. Chinook numbers have been drastically dropping over the past few decades. The leaders of the group say they were there to build relationships with American policymakers, not to advocate against industry or suggest specific changes to legislation.
In no way did we go in and tell another country how to, administer their business. At this point, it was just really building relationship and recognizing that there is an issue and that what we are doing on both sides of the river is not working.
Yukon MP Brendan Hanley and Yukon Senator Pat Duncan were also on the trip. The group met with a number of U.S. Congress members and senators, as well as representatives from the Sierra Club. The delegation is hoping to recreate the same momentum that resulted in successful caribou advocacy and protection in the Yukon. This year's Chinook and Fall chum runs on the Yukon River failed to meet conservation targets on both sides of the U.S.-Canada border. Both runs ranked as among the worst on record for both species. The NWT and Nunavut Chamber of Mines says the North still holds diamond potential and believes a protected all-season road to the mines is worth the cost. Robert Holden has that story.
The project, the Slave Geological Corridor, a two-lane gravel road leading from Tibbet Lake NWT to the Nunavut border. The GNWT says it will unlock the territory's full economic potential and assist Canada in transitioning to a low-carbon future. And it's already moving toward Phase 1, an all-weather road from Tibbet to Lockhart Lake. Tom Hofer says that's a good thing. He's the executive director of the NWT and Nunavut Chamber of Mines. He told CBC News the NWT is still a diamond-rich region, but acknowledged the enormous infrastructure costs of acquiring those minerals. In his eyes, the road is worth it. and could even extend the lives of the diamond mines by allowing for the harvest of lower quality deposits. Former MLA for Frame Lake Kevin O'Reilly says the train has left the station as far as mining goes in the NWT. O'Reilly says diamonds are dwindling, and the expensive nature of resource exploration is a gamble the NWT may want to think twice about.
Presumably, it's going to be billions of dollars of public money spent on a road that could possibly lead to some more mineral development of questionable value.
During his term as MLA, O'Reilly supported a more substantial assessment of the region's economic potential. His wish may have come true. The Mackenzie Valley Review Board will assess the Slave Geological Corridor over the coming years. But the GNWT hopes to begin geotechnical work in a matter of months. O'Reilly says the government should pump the brakes until the study is complete.
I just don't think you can do both things at the same time. You cannot be setting yourself up to make irreversible decisions on that infrastructure project while saying you support a regional study. You just can't do both.
The Slave Geological Corridor will span 413 kilometers. If fully approved, the assessment through the Mackenzie Valley Review Board will take 3 to 4 years. Robert Holden, CBC News, Yellowknife.
The Gwich'in Development Corporation announced a new trucking company on Monday. The operation will haul freight from Edmonton to Nunavut. The trucks will also serve Gwich'in communities along the highway. The new company already has its first vehicle. A picture of a new semi-trailer truck was shared on social media earlier this week. The Gwich'in Tribal Council's Grand Chief says the move is a long time coming.
We are of the opinion that we are going to be here forever, so we might as well start hauling our own materials. So we decided to start with a single truck and begin building it out from there.
The company will haul materials needed for big GTC projects and serve the communities in the region by hauling commercial and personal freight. The trucking office will be based in Nunavut and have offices as well in Edmonton and Fort McPherson. Kikovichik says the GTC plans to start offering freight service to private customers early in the new year. A Nunavut woman is calling for change at the territory's medical boarding home in Ottawa. She wants to see the rules around drinking enforced. Alicia Tunu reports.
Pichula Akirueko has been at Largabaffin since last September, and she says she is fed up with intoxication at the boarding home. She is calling on the Nunavut government's Minister of Health to respond. I really want the situation to be looked at and put into consideration. I am tired of it, and it has been an ongoing issue. The president for Largabaffin, Malaya Zur, says efforts are being made to ensure clients are aware for Larga's rules prohibiting drinking. In my own opinion, I think the medical patients should be warned about the rules before they come down for medical, not just sometimes but every day. We are always worried about the patients, but also we try to support them as workers here at the Larga. The president of Larga says it takes 2 warnings of a medical traveler to get banned from the Larga. She added there will be a social worker hired on site to support clients. Alicia Tono, CBC News, Iqaluit.
A non-profit organization in Montreal is preparing for the grand opening of a new Inuit Women's Centre. Sak Inu Womens Association of Nunavut is an advocate for Inuit women and children. The centre will support Inuit of Nunavut and urban Inuit living outside of the region.
There will be a conference center, office, healing programs. It will also have some sewing rooms, and there will be some activities for children. We work together to try and have the building to be reminded of home. We will make the environment friendly and welcoming. The Inuit women will be more than welcome to come and do some cooking.
Naomi Aluk says Sak Inu will also try to have traditional food available for its clients. The federal government has reached a multi-million-dollar deal with Google after months of the web giant threatening to pull Canadian news off of its search engine. It's in response to a new law that requires major digital platforms pay Canadian news outlets for linking to their content. Kate McKenna has the details.
After months of threats from Google to pull Canadian news content from the search engine, a deal.
This is a deal, an agreement that is going to resonate around the world as countries and democracies struggling with the same challenges that our media landscape in Canada is facing with are going to look at this, and we're very pleased we were there.
The federal government says Google will pay about $100 million per year to Canadian news organizations, a compensation for linking to original journalism. That's less than what the government wanted, but welcome news for an industry that needs those clicks.
Google creates our information environment. It sounds like I'm overstating this, but you want to know something, you put in a Google search.
This announcement comes after the government passed a new law forcing web giants to pay to link to Canadian news content.
I think the government was looking for some way to salvage what had been a real mess. There was, I think, some amount of desperation on the part of both the government and the industry to find some deal.
The government calls this deal a win. But Meta, the parent company of Instagram and Facebook, has already blocked Canadian news links from their platforms.
Unfortunately, Meta continues to completely abdicate any responsibility towards democratic institutions and even stability, but we're going to continue to work positively in those areas.
But there are still questions of how Google's money will be doled out and who will be eligible, including the CBC. The agreement allows Google to work directly with one group that will represent all media, but the details of how that will work won't be released until next month. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Ottawa.
Atco Electric Yukon wants more money from ratepayers, and a public hearing this week will determine if the company will get it. Atco is asking for a 5.2% rate hike starting next year. It wants to spend more on capital projects like underground electric infrastructure in parts of Whitehorse. Atco is making its case in front of the Public Utilities Board, and it is facing opposition. John Mason is a retired engineer with Yukon Energy. He's an intervener, and he wants consumers protected.
I would hope that the rate increase that Atco Electric Yukon is asking for will be somewhat less than the 5%. I don't know if it can be 0% or whether the board will think 0% is reasonable, but we'll see where that comes out. The other thing is, in future, I would like to see more consideration for the ratepayers when things are going well for Atco Electric Yukon. They have, let's call it, over-earned a fair bit over the past 5 years.
Atco admits its application for more money comes as it exceeds profit limits set by the Public Utility Board. Mason says it appears stakeholders are being put ahead of ratepayers. The hearing wraps up tomorrow. The decision on the rate hike will be made early next year. The Iqaluit District Education Authority wants the government of Nunavut to commit to mediation in a recent legal challenge. The DEA is taking the territorial government to court, claiming the GN stopped some support workers from helping students in need. The DEA was given $120,000 from the federal Inuit Child First initiative earlier this year. It was supposed to be used to screen 28 children for emotional and behavioral challenges. But the authority says the GN refused to let the screeners into schools.
If government agrees to mediation, that's wonderful. If they don't, it's going to be a much longer process, but it doesn't make sense that the money just sits there and the kids don't get the services.
The case will be in court on December 4th. Family doctors are in short supply in Canada, but that's an issue that's keenly felt in remote, rural, and northern communities. Some jurisdictions offer financial incentives in order to recruit and retain family physicians on a long-term basis. Now, one town is suing a doctor who took the money, but left after a little more than a year. Karen Pauls has that story.
The Paw, Manitoba, population 5,600. It's more than 600 kilometers northwest of Winnipeg, and it's where Dr. Andrea Wilson agreed to work for 10 years after graduating from the Family Medicine Residency Program at the University of Manitoba. According to court documents, Wilson signed a $100,000 loan agreement and agreed to work at least 880 clinical hours every year between 2020 and 2030. A social media notice posted by the Northern Health Region welcomed her to the community. But court documents say Wilson left the PAW 16 months later. She moved to Vancouver and was hired by a clinic that posted a notice heralding her arrival. She's what you always hoped family medicine could be and should be. Wilson has since moved to another Vancouver clinic. Meanwhile, the PAW Community Development Corporation demanded repayment of the loan by December 31st, 2022. The defendant has refused and/or neglected and continues to refuse and/or neglect to pay the loan.
But sometimes it doesn't work out, and that's absolutely devastating to a municipality and to a region and to the residents. And ultimately, they're the ones that are truly hurt by this.
Recruiting and retaining family doctors is an ongoing challenge for remote and rural communities. And this is a nightmare, says this municipal leader, who is commenting generally and not on this specific case.
Not only are they out financially for some sort of incentive that's been provided, but also the fact that they've lost this, this caregiver now.
But some physicians groups say doctors and nurses don't have to live in a community full-time to do a great job for their patients. Dr. Nadine Gilroy splits her practice between Norway House Cree Nation and Winnipeg.
You would be hard-pressed to find a physician that wants to abandon their patients. A physician who has worked in a location for more than a few months is going to feel a great responsibility to the patients that they have in their practice and to the people that they look after and the community that they're trying to be part of. And so I don't believe that these decisions are ever made lightly.
Dr. Wilson couldn't be reached for a comment. She has until the beginning of December to file a statement of defense. Karen Pauls, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Men, this message is for you. That is what is on a billboard in 3 major cities across Canada. It's part of the United Nations 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. Janelle Henry has the story.
Where would we be without women? That's the question Clan Mothers Healing Village is asking. The Indigenous women's-led advocacy group is calling on men with this billboard to step up and stop violence against women.
I hope with my heart and soul there'll be a few brave men that will start a movement that we need so desperately, because we can't do it anymore. We're tired, nobody's listening.
Elder May Louise Campbell is on the billboard. She is the founder of the Clan Mothers Healing Village. She says without men being strong advocates to end gender-based violence, nothing will change.
Our women suffer so much, and I know I've been working with them for so many years already.
She hopes the campaign will wake up men to stand up for women. Krista Anderson is the project coordinator of this campaign. She designed the billboards.
When we were creating the campaign, I wanted to create a positive image or a positive message, something that was going to engage the men out there.
This photo of Campbell inspired Anderson for this project. She thought the image was powerful and wanted to see the same kind of photo for this message.
Anybody that knows Elder May Louise, we're all too familiar with how she talks to anyone. She holds their face and she looks at them in the eye.
Norman Mead is the elder in residence at the University of Manitoba. He says we all need this message.
You have to understand that their role is not that of abusing women and misusing women or using women as objects, but that their role is to be one of protectors of the women and want to provide for their families, right? Our young men need to understand that.
Billboards calling for action are also up in Toronto and Vancouver. Janelle Henry, CBC Indigenous, Winnipeg.
I'm Kathleen Goldhar, host of a new podcast, Crime Story. Every week we bring you a different crime, told by the storyteller who knows it best. All the ins and outs.
It was a story of murder, of exploitation of a schoolgirl.
You got one witness who can't be found. You got another witness who has changed his entire story.
I remember just this feeling of complete disbelief.
Crime Story, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
You are constantly on the move, and so are we, making sense of the moments that matter.
together.
Looks like things are maybe winding down.
Asking what, why, when.
To the center of the biggest stories, meeting the people living them.
Thank you for letting us be here. What's your situation?
Making sense of our world.
How are we going to be part of this solution?
With you and for you.
Connectedness, groundedness.
I'm Adrienne Arsenault. This is The National.
Canadians of generations have been miseducated.
But we don't talk about that.
We are here. We have been here.
These stories are us.
Yeah, dog!
Oh, an absolute classic.
All right.
Let's go! Yeah!
This is The National.
Every week, the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
Canada's latest GDP numbers will be released tomorrow, and one unusual metric is suggesting it might not be a pretty picture. It's called the Lipstick Index. The CBC's Paula Duhatschek explains how cosmetic sales can foreshadow what's happening in the economy.
The cost of living may be high these days, but business at this Calgary Sephora is booming.
I don't like to admit it, but I come once a month.
I did notice that my ordinary stuff has gone up in price, but yeah, I have to do it for me.
The so-called lipstick index suggests when times are tough, people buy more cosmetics, a relatively affordable luxury. Some have disputed the idea, but a recent study from California State University found during the 2008 recession, makeup sales went up while clothing sales went down.
I would say it's been unprecedented.
Analytics firm Circana says Canadian beauty sales are up 18% ahead of the holiday season. That's on top of 24% growth last year.
Consumers today, they may be hesitant to invest in a higher priced item like a handbag or designer handbag or a designer pair of shoes, but they're still looking to have that spark of joy when they go shopping.
Those same analytics from Circana show in comparison to beauty, apparel sales are up only slightly this year, while footwear is trending down.
Here we have our derm wall.
Retailers are banking the beauty boom will help keep customers buying.
Our sales last year, they were record sales. This year, we're on track now to eclipse last year's sales.
And Shoppers Drug Mart owner Loblaw says beauty sales have been strong despite inflation.
And we would expect, that to remain the case for the foreseeable future.
Not everyone agrees. Circana says there may be a limit to what shoppers will spend even on affordable luxury. After 2 banner years, they're predicting a slowdown.
This is the serum.
Some shoppers are making changes.
I've minimized some of my skincare and my makeup routine for sure, but there still is certain products that I will go after because they make me feel good and they work well.
A way to save money that still feels like a splurge. Paula Duhatschek, CBC News, Calgary.
A new server at a Regina restaurant is turning heads. He can play music and serve multiple trays at a time without dropping anything. That is no small feat, but this is no human. He's a robot named Wally, of course. Our colleagues at CBC Regina stopped by his restaurant to get served the details.
It's served at most 4 tables in front, and the service, the only thing the service need to do is just put it on the table. It could save a lot of time from the back to the front line because there are a long way from the back to the front. They reduce the capacity of the service, so the service have more time to know what are other demands or other needs the customer really need.
Please take the dishes. Here you go. You can enjoy your meal.
What do you think of the machine?
我觉得方便呀
It's very convenient.
而且
convenient, very convenient.
而且特别是像我们有孩子的家庭，它可以增加这个吃饭过程的乐趣。
Especially for the family who has the kids, it will bring a lot of happiness, to the dinner.
他就是提前就是
He need to know the map of this restaurant, so he is very familiar even to each corner, so he know which dishes to which table.
走过去送餐，他会说
He could say some funny things such as "I'm very smart," "I'm working now."
去送餐。
Select the corresponding table number after the dishes are placed on the tray.
That's kind of cute. I like that. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For News Anytime. Nope. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night, and here is the weather.
When I arrived in Canada, there were not many women who looked like me. Not everyone was welcoming. But my husband made a new life here in this distant country. And I thought here I could belong. And many others could too. As the years went on, our town flourished. Our community worked together and took care of each other. Our children grew up with a true sense of belonging. Here in Baldi, we built our home, and we wanted others to do the same.
Established by South Asian immigrants in 1917, the mill town of Baldi, British Columbia was one of Canada's first inclusive multicultural communities.
You're not a millennial.
Yeah, well, Dr. Dre's not a doctor. I feel like such an imposter.
You need money to survive.
He had something to hide.
Try typing with your thumbs.
What do you call it?
It's called a blackberry.
Huh.
We call them crackberries.
There's a serial killer on the loose.
2 attacks in a week.
Go on.
Everybody's got something to hide.
We're not gonna be here forever, right? Makes me want to make some changes.
Your family can't take much more.
Think you're a better driver when you're high? Think again. No alcohol, no drugs, no victims. A message from Mad Canada.
I want my children home where they should be.
You'll go to jail if you don't sign.
There's gonna come a time you'll feel the darkness. You don't let them win.
I understand that you're struggling emotionally.
Sure you want to do this?
I mean, it's research, right? You need to stop asking me for things I can't give you. You've done it my whole life.